This week on ANN, Romanian officials offer strong support for religious liberty.
Thousands throughout the country of Austria seize an opportunity to watch the church's outreach films on creation.
And members in Central America receive training to better serve the church and their communities.
These stories and more are coming up now.
This is ANN, a service of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church. Thanks so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, top Romanian officials last month pledged their support for religious liberty in the Eastern European nation during a symposium sponsored by the Conscience and Liberty Association. The Adventist Church is a key sponsor of the association, which is a non-sectarian organization that promotes religious freedom. During the two-day conference, Titus Corlatian, Romania's Minister of Foreign Affairs, emphasized the importance for religious denominations to be able to operate without restrictions on their traditions, beliefs, or rituals. On the second day of the event, officials from Wallachia University presented honorary doctorate degrees to John Gratz, Secretary General of the International Religious Liberty Association, and Ganoun Diop, Director of United Nations Relations for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The vast majority of Romania's population of 21 million is Eastern Orthodox, and less than 7% are Protestant. There are 67,000 Adventists in the country.
As a result of an unprecedented event sponsored by the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Austria, thousands were able to experience the love of God through a powerful illustration of the Earth's creation. More than 6,000 people watched The Creation, The Earth is a Witness, as well as a new film entitled Africa, The Origin, throughout a 10-day tour in the Central European nation. The number of guests exceeded the number of Adventist Church members in the country. Church members personally invited more than 60% of the tour's attendees. For more on the tour, Gerhard Weiner sent this report.
1500 Besucher, große und kleine. Spannende Vorträge, Dinosaurier und eine große Leinwand. Das war die Zwischenstation der Creation Tour im Wiener Austria-Sender am 27. Oktober 2014. Auch das Rahmenprogramm hatte viel zu bieten und die Besucher hatten ihre Erwartungen und Vorstellungen.
Warum bist du heute da?
Weil mich der Film so interessiert.
Auch die Ausstellung finde ich sehr gut. Wirklich schön bebildert, schön beschrieben, sachlich sehr gut. Also ich freue mich schon sehr.
Aber es dürfte ein bisschen christlich gefärbt sein und das ist auch interessant, dass man das von einem anderen Blickpunkt ein bisschen sieht. Nicht nur Evolution, sondern eben die andere Möglichkeit.
Evolution oder Schöpfung? Zwei Weltsichten, wie sie unterschiedlicher gar nicht sein könnten. Hier finden gerade die letzten Vorbereitungen statt für diese Veranstaltung, die schon viele Menschen begeistert hat. In atemberaubenden Bildern und Vorträgen, die nicht nur die Kleinen begeisterten, lud das Team der Austria Creation Tour zu einer spannenden Auseinandersetzung zu diesem Thema ein. Höhepunkt der Veranstaltung war der Film Die Schöpfung. Die Erde ist Zeuge.
Papagei, noch ein Pelikan.
Es hat bei weitem meine Erwartungen übertroffen. Ein fantastischer, ergreifender Film.
Und Flamingo.
Mir haben die Affen eigentlich ganz gut gefallen.
Und Walfisch und
Großen Eindruck habe ich von allen, ja.
ein Tiger.
Many things which I saw in this film I never saw before in the real life, and it was really impressive.
Noch ein Affe, noch Hunde.
Ein Film also, der Eindrücke hinterlässt. Dreimal noch kann man diese Veranstaltung erleben. Am 28.10. im Sparkassensaal Wiener Neustadt, am 29.10. im Dom im Berg in Graz und am 30.10.2014 in der Stadthalle Fürstenfeld. Alle Details und Informationen sind auf www.dieschöpfung.eu zu finden.
Es ist spannend zu sehen, wie die Menschen bisher reflektiert haben. Ich freue mich darauf, dass Menschen berührt wurden mit dieser wichtigen Thematik. Woher komme ich? Warum bin ich auf dieser Welt? Und wohin geht die Reise? Und ich glaube, dass die Besucher, die Gäste, die wir hier jeden Abend empfangen, genau das spüren werden, dass es eine tatsächliche, echte Hoffnung gibt, die weit über dieses Leben hinausreicht.
In the church's Inter-American region last week, nearly 200,000 Seventh-day Adventist church leaders and members completed specialized training on how to better serve the church and their communities. Certificates of completion were given to the participants during a special program which also celebrated the territory's year of non-formal education. The initiative aims to maintain a rapid increase in church membership in the region. Church leaders said the program represented the decades-long emphasis of educating members and helping pastors nurture their congregations, who would in turn share their knowledge with their communities.
The newest facilities of Sydney Adventist Hospital were officially opened by the nation's Prime Minister. Record in Focus has more.
Flanked by both the federal and New South Wales health ministers, Mr Abbott was effusive in his praise of the Adventist Church, the hospital and its place in Australia's healthcare system. Stage 1 of the major redevelopment project includes a new maternity wing and new operating theatres, as well as significantly increasing the hospital's bed capacity. Future facilities include an integrated cancer centre and an expansion of the hospital to cater for 300,000 patients per year by 2024. Sydney Adventist Hospital is well known in Sydney's northwest and has been in operation since 1903.
Nearly 100 church leaders and scholars recently gained a deeper understanding of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in China during a first-of-its-kind conference in Hong Kong. It is estimated that there are more than 400,000 Adventist members who worship in the country. The Seventh-day Adventist Church works with China's Three Self-Patriotic Movement, which together with the China Christian Council form the only state-sanctioned Protestant church in mainland China. Conference attendees were presented with an in-depth account of the church's history in the country, beginning with missionary work that began in the early 20th century.
Humanitarians in Zimbabwe found a practical solution to address the high rate of maternal mortality in the region. Last month, the nation's Office of the Adventist Development and Relief Agency presented E-Ranger ambulances to the Zimbabwe Ministry of Health and Child Welfare. The E-Rangers are versatile bikes that will transport pregnant women who are in need of emergency care. Medical professionals from local clinics will receive training on how to operate the bikes.
Coming up, an exciting story of how Nuevo Tiempo is expanding its coverage in Peru.
King Herod had arrested some that belonged to the church and was planning to persecute them. When Herod had James put to death with a sword and saw how the Jews had approved of this, he seized Peter also.
Peter was guarded by 4 squads of 4 soldiers each. We were very concerned for his safety, and the church prayed earnestly for him.
The night before Herod was going to bring him to trial, Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers, bound by chains, and sentries stood guard at the entrance. Suddenly, an angel of the Lord appeared, and light shone into his cell. The angel struck Peter on the side to wake him up, and the chains fell off his wrists. As he was instructed, Peter followed the angel out of the prison, past all of the guards, to the gate of the city.
Many people had been praying together in the house of Mary, the mother of John. As a servant in the house, I heard knocking on the door. With caution, I went to open the door, and to my surprise, there stood Peter. We had just been praying earnestly for him in prison.
Once again, united prayer had worked, and the Word of God continued to spread and flourish.
Welcome back. Now for more news from our global church community.
Leaders and members last week celebrated the expansion of the church's broadcast network Nuevo Tiempo to cable in the nation of Peru. Nearly 40,000 people attended the ceremony, which served as the inauguration of the station's expansion. The television station can now reach 10 million people in 16 cities.
Nearly 13,000 people in Hungary last month participated in an outreach event that focused on finding biblical answers to social issues. The initiative featured the Connect to Escape television program from Life Connect TV, a media network based in the church's Trans-European region. Miroslav Puic, the communication director for the church in the territory, led presentations on trust, forgiveness, and living out God's purpose. More than 12,000 of the attendees tuned in online throughout the country. Many of the young adults who participated in the event expressed appreciation for the positive way the leaders discussed God and the Bible.
Residents in a southern city of Brazil will now have the opportunity to hear the Adventist message through a new radio program. Church members in Paranaguá were recently given an hour slot to air a program from a local gospel radio station. The program, The Bible Teaches, airs on Saturdays and Sundays and has already made a lasting impact on its listeners.
The United Nations this week released a new report on the current state of climate change. The report indicates that if greenhouse emissions around the world don't decrease soon, the negative effects on the Earth's condition could be irreversible. Seventh-day Adventists have long held a stance of stewardship for God's creation. Adventists believe humankind was created in the image of God and represent Him as stewards to manage the environment in a faithful way. Erika Pooney has more on why stewardship of the environment is such a vital practice.
Seventh-day Adventists take seriously God's mandate in Genesis to rule over or to extend His rulership to all that which He has created. And as such, we are called to be faithful stewards, not only of the Lord's financial resources, but this stewardship extends to everything that surrounds us, which basically is the environment and the world that we live in. So I think it's within our own genes as Adventists, so to speak, to be responsible citizens of this planet.
This time last year, the nation of the Philippines was hit with Super Typhoon Haiyan, or Yolanda in the native language. The storm ravaged the country by killing more than 6,000 people and leaving 1,000 unaccounted for. For the month of November, ADRA Philippines will focus on remembering the lives lost during the tragedy. If you have photos, videos, or short stories that illustrate your experience during the storm, you can send them to feedback@adra.ph. You can also post your stories at facebook.com/adraph.
And finally in the news this week, a creative ministry in England that seeks to share the beauty of the Seventh-day Sabbath was recently recognised at a Christian Media Awards conference. The Sabbath Sofa video series was placed second in the categories of Innovative Use of New Media in Outreach and Most Creative Use of Social Media. The awards were a part of the Christian New Media Awards 2014 in London. For more on the Sabbath Sofa ministry, the Trans-European Division sent this report.
So you're tired?
Yes.
Yeah, mentally.
I don't know, I've been walking for a really long time.
Why are you tired mentally?
The things you see, the things you hear, the things you smell when you're out in Afghanistan or Iraq.
Do you ever get tired about mentally watching the news and stuff and what goes on in the world?
Yeah, also.
How does that make you feel?
Frustrated.
Sometimes watching the news, you do get bored, and then it reaches a point where for me, I just don't watch the news sometimes.
Right. Okay, what about you? Anything else that gets you tired?
The evil in this world. I can't deal with the war and the pain and the hunger.
Do you ever feel like it's just an all-rush affair, like you're just a machine, you're just going, and you're not stopping for anything?
You kind of carry on until you can't.
Two of our pastors, Vili Koskescu and Sam Gongolo, and they came up with this really creative idea of introducing the Sabbath to the busy people of London, trying to make the truth relevant and practical for people today.
So I've got this idea, this concept. Tell me what you think about it, all right? Imagine with me you could take 24 hours out every single week, and in that time you could rest. Imagine you didn't have to go to work, imagine you didn't have to run around shopping, but you could actually relax and rest with the people that you love. What does a day sound like that to you?
Comforting.
Comforting? Yeah?
That sounds good.
What does a day sound like that to you?
Sounds like a dream.
A dream?
Come true.
Really?
Yeah.
If you were to design the perfect day off where you could, where the focus of it would be to relax and reconnect and recharge and maybe do something good, what would you do?
I will spend time to myself.
Like sleep in, wake up, do some exercise, eat a really healthy breakfast, go for a nice walk.
Stop and go away from from the things that I normally do.
Do you think that London in general need a day like that?
Yeah, London is just too busy. Slow down and calm down.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Where nothing moves.
I do need a day like that. We just don't get a day like that.
And we're here today to communicate this message and encourage you guys to think about this concept of a Sabbath for you. And so today, we want to challenge you this week to think about the concept of experiencing a Sabbath in your life. Remember that you're not a machine, and you can experience the Sabbath for yourself.
I love
Discover
this.
the Sabbath for yourself.
This is a great concept.
Fantastic.
From the conversations that were engendered, it was clearly seen that the Sabbath was something that they could be a part of. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't just a conversation, that the pastors were keen to engender friendships, nurturing friendships, and they have followed those conversations, those friendships up, to the point that we've had the wonderful experience where some people have even changed their jobs and are now Sabbath keepers, all by virtue of the Sabbath sofa and seeing how wonderful it is to have a time of rest. And of course, resting not just away from work, but resting in the presence of God.
And one of the creators of the Sabbath sofa, Vili Costescu, has more on how the awards will impact their ministry.
The world needs rest, and we have the solution. Winning a Christian Media Award was not the main goal of the Sabbath sofa. Our purpose is to share the gift of the Sabbath with those in desperate need of a break. The idea is spreading around the world online with over 42,000 followers on Facebook and also in other countries. The dream now is to expand further. Our wish is to take the Sabbath sofa to London more often and to establish rest cafes throughout the big cities in the UK. We are also hoping to do a Sabbath sofa tour around Europe in the spring 2015 and possibly a tour around the US right before the General Conference session. Our wish is to tell as many people as possible, remember, you're not a machine. Experience the Sabbath.
Still ahead, learn how students are searching for ways that young adults can stay connected to the Adventist Church.
But up next, find out what's in the latest edition of Adventist World magazine.
Welcome back. Leal Caesar has a preview of the current issue of Adventist World magazine.
When I was a ministerial intern being trained in evangelistic technique, we were taught to prepare a series of questions for the public and ask, which one of these would you like us to deal with in the evangelistic series? Consistently, people chose as one of the most desired subjects some explanation on why good things don't always happen to good people, why the innocent suffer. This month's issue of the Adventist World places front and center that horrible question of suffering in the case of a man named Job. And in tandem with the discussion on Job, which you will want to read, we do have a story about Baruch, who was a great man, a gifted, talented man, who had great promise, but who seemed to never fulfill that promise because bad things happened to him. But God promised to take care of him. Ebola is also on tap in this month's issue of Adventist World. You will want to read it from cover to cover. God bless as you read.
Students from Adventist colleges and universities in North America recently held a summit to address youth and young adult retention in the church. Angela Taipei has more on the summit's social media campaign.
This week in social media news, students from every Adventist college and university in North America joined together at Union College in the U.S. state of Nebraska for the student-organized North American Division Youth Retention and Involvement Summit. Participants learned together and discussed ways to encourage young people to stay involved in the church. At this event, students launched a social media campaign with the hashtag #IamTheChurch, asking their peers, what will you be doing in 5 years from now? Encouraging long-term thinking about what role they will play in the church in the future. See a few examples in this clip from a video produced by Union College students, led by Stephen Foster. What about you? What will you be doing in 5 years? Write down your answer and share it on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram with the hashtag #IamTheChurch.
For this month's report from the Geoscience Research Institute, Tim Standish discusses dinosaur footprints that were discovered in northern Italy. Here's his report.
Many hundreds of years ago, the famous Italian author Dante wrote about a gigantic rock slide that occurred here in northern Italy. You can see evidence of this rock slide behind me. Dante left a historical record of something that happened. But that event uncovered another kind of record. These amazing dinosaur footprints. Dinosaur footprints tell us that dinosaurs existed, just as Dante's record of the rock slide tells us when the dinosaur footprints were revealed to the world. We know when the rock slide occurred because we have a written record of it. And we know that it occurred because we can look at the evidence that we see all around us here in this place. We live in an age when people are willing to ignore written records of history, and particularly the written record of history that we find in the Bible, and claim that the physical evidence somehow or other demonstrates that's not true. In reality, I find the written record of Scripture to be as reliable, in fact, more reliable than the written record that Dante left behind. Not only can we look at the physical evidence in the creation itself, but we can trust God's word and know that it tells us of God's action throughout history and of his future actions when he is going to come and do a new creation here on earth.
Have you ever wanted to go somewhere and couldn't take the time or afford it? Well, there's a fairly good chance that Google has been there before you and taken a camera as well. John Beckett has more on this week's Tech Corner.
I think all of us wonder what it's like to be somewhere and just take a look around. Nothing beats actually traveling somewhere so that you can meet the people, hear the sounds, smell the things, and eat the food. However, there's an easy and fun way to tour many places online. Google has been taking cameras all over the place and has pictures of many very interesting locations. Recently, they even loaded one on the back of the camel and walked it around the desert in Abu Dhabi. It can be a lot of fun to control where you're looking and follow the path of the camera. To go somewhere virtually and have a look around, head to maps.google.com. Once you've found the location on the map, just grab and drag the little orange person onto anywhere you see colored in blue. After you've done this, you can use on-screen controls to control the view and placement of the camera and look around. Across the bottom of the screen, you can see pictures that people have taken at that location. For places that don't have full Google Street View, you can still find blue dots on the map which show places somebody has taken a 360-degree panorama called a photosphere. With the photosphere, you can't virtually walk down a street, but you can look around from that single location. I found Google Maps a fun way to explore places close to home and in other parts of the world.
And now it's time to turn to Benjamin Baker for a look at This Week in Adventist History.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. In the first half of this week, in 1888, one of the most pivotal General Conference sessions in our history concluded. Held from October 17 to November 4 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, at the recently built Seventh-day Adventist Church, which you see here, the session is legendary because of the presentations delivered by A.T. Jones and E.J. Wagner centering on Christ and His righteousness. In this very rare image, you can see the inside of the church and the view that Jones and Wagner had while delivering their sermons. Ellen White wrote that when they spoke, bread came down from heaven, and those at the conference seemed to breathe the very atmosphere of heaven. Also during this week in 1920, Tom Largo and his wife, whose name is unfortunately lost to us, were the first converts to Adventism from the Navajo Indian religion. The Largos were wealthy Native Americans of northeastern New Mexico who became distrustful of their traditional ways when Tom's father and mother fell ill, and the medicine men, unable to heal them, nevertheless extracted a medical fee of all of the Largos' cattle. It was at this distressing time that the couple learned of the Adventists' Lake Grove Indian Mission, established just years earlier in 1916. After Mrs. Largo had a vivid dream in which the whole area lay in darkness, save a bright light around the mission with gleaming stairs ascending to heaven, the couple began studying the Bible with missionaries Arno Follett and Maggie McCoy. Both became convicted of the truth, and despite Tom's extensive collection of fetish gods and the animosity from the community's powerful medicine men, the Largos were baptized and themselves became ministers to the Navajos, bringing many to Christ. And that's This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
But in the meantime, you can join our global conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can connect with other Adventists worldwide through more stories, photos, and videos. Visit Facebook/Adventist News or Twitter/Adventist Church and Instagram @Adventist Church.
Our good news for this week comes from John chapter 8, verse 12. The passage says, when Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life."
And that's our program for this week. And remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, take care.
God bless.